We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Israel's Netanyahu sweeps party primary in re-election boost. Algerians protest against new presidents, but some say it's time for dialogue. Union boss defiant on France's longest strike in decades. China launches powerful rocket in boost for 2020 Mars mission. Montreal horse-drawn carriages take one last lap. Toronto's old streetcars, a symbol of city, leaves the rails. In EBC Sports, Vancouver Canucks ends Pittsburgh's Penguins' winning streak at 4. Vancouver Canucks top Vegas Golden Knights in overtime thriller. And the Meat and Cheese Festival make a stop at Vancouver. I'm Tiffany Alisasis with Eagle News, broadcasting from our Calgary's Canada studio, bringing you stories from around the globe. Embattled Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu predicts he will win the country's general election in March. His prediction follows a landslide victory in the leadership's primary of his right-wing Likud party. Netanyahu's win was no surprise, as he was expected to beat the rival Gideon Sa'ar in the leadership primary. Israel's longest-serving premier faces a corruption indictment, as well as a third general election in 12 months. The convincing margin of victory by 72.5 to 27.5% strengthens his position in the party he has dominated for 20 years. The 70-year-old prime minister called it a huge win and pledged to emerge victorious in the March 2 general election.
עכשיו הזמן להתאחד כדי להביא ניצחון סוחף לליכוד ולימין בבחירות לכנסת. רוב העם תומך בימין ורוב העם תומך בי לראשות הממשלה.
In what appeared to be a general election campaign speech, Netanyahu did not mention the defeated Sa'ar once. He thanked U.S. President Donald Trump, a close ally, for his support for Israel. He added a Likud victory in the next election would bring more historic achievements. Likud and the centrist Blue and White Party were deadlocked after election in both April and September. Neither was able to command a parliamentary majority under Israel's system of proportional representation. Blue and White leader Benny Gantz also used the primary result as a rallying call for the general election. He says Netanyahu's victory shows Likud's members have elected a leader facing 3 indictments who is seeking to unravel the rule of law and secure personal immunity. Protests continue in Algeria as demonstrators call for an overhaul of the country's political system. On Friday, tens of thousands of people took to the streets to protest the election of a new president. The demonstrators have been going on every Friday since last February. Since February 22, the streets of capital Algiers have been filled with protesters every Friday, first calling for the outers of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, then pushing for a complete overhaul of the political system in place since Algeria's 1962 independence from France. Turnout at the marches has seen peaks and troughs over the months, but they swelled in recent weeks ahead of an election to replace President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. The protesters say the election was a ploy to ensure establishment insiders stayed in power. The latest demonstration last Friday seemed one of the smallest since the start of the unprecedented peaceful uprising. Some protesters say schools and university holidays had kept people away. Still, those in the streets said they were determined to press ahead with the protest movement. These protesters say they will continue to push for political reform.
راك الجماعه عندنا مساكن ما يعرفوش وقلت لهم باللي الحوار قلت لهم ما حبوش يتحاوروا هذه الفتنه يا خوتي اختاروا من الفتنه هذه يا خوتي احنا شعب واحد شعب مسلم شعب جزائري واحد 48 ولايه ما نريد لا شيء لا نقاء ولا جمل هذا الشعب يحب لازم خلاص ما خرجناش ضد الاشخاص احنا ضد النظام.
Le régime algérien depuis 62, que je qualifie en tant que maire, en tant qu'un régime, une boîte de protection de corrompus et de la corruption et de l'injustice sociale.
The crowd was outnumbered by the throngs of people who had turned out for the funeral earlier in the week of powerful army chief Ahmed Gha Salah. Salah had become the de facto strongman in the country after Bouteflika's resignation in April. There's no end in sight to the strike by transport workers in France. The boss of the hardline trade union has vowed to press on with the walkout which was crippled transportation in Paris for the past 3 weeks. Felipe Martinez of the CGT union lashed out at Prime Minister Edouard Philippe, who has said he wants no confrontation with the strikers. Martinez has accused Philippe of not being true to his word. The strike against pension reforms, campaigned by President Emmanuel Macron, began on December 5th. It has cast a long shadow over celebrations in France for Christmas and the New Year. No talks between the unions and government are scheduled until January 7th. The unions are demanding that the government drops a plan to merge 42 existing pension schemes into a single system. The overhaul would see some workers lose early retirement benefits. The government says the pension overhaul is needed to create a fairer system. China has taken a major step forward for its planned mission to Mars next year. It has launched one of the world's most powerful rockets in the heavy-lift Long March 5 rocket, carrying a Sijan 20 test satellite payload blasted off last Friday. The official Xinhua news agency says the rocket launch tests key technologies related to future space missions. More than 1 million people watched an online live stream of the launch. Videos on social media showed crowds at the launch site cheering as the rockets blasted off into the night sky. Fat 5, the rocket's nickname, was a trending topic on the Twitter-like Weibo social media platform. Up next, Montreal's horse-drawn carriages take one last lap. Toronto's old streetcars, a symbol of city, leaves the rails. Vancouver Canucks ends Pittsburgh Penguins' winning streak at 4. Vancouver Canucks top Vegas Golden Knights in overtime thriller. This is Eagle News. You're watching Eagle News. To tourists, they are a time-honored, charming way of seeing the sights. But animal rights activists says Montreal's horse-drawn carriages are cruel and unnecessary relic of yesteryear. A long-standing feud between the coachmen and their critics is set to end. The unique mode of transportation will disappear from city streets by the year end. In the heart of Montreal's Old Port neighborhood, a half-dozen horses and carriages are lined up outside the Notre Dame Basilica waiting for riders. A group of tourists tempted by offers of a languid and comfortable ride. Along cobblestone streets, and a complimentary blanket across their lap on a cold winter's day. Snap pictures. Carriage owners Luc Desperos says the horses and carriages are a part of Montreal's cultural heritage. Cody spokesman Jean-Francois Parentou says despite the popularity of carriage horses, it's time to bow the wishes of the animal rights lobby.
C'est une forme de tourisme qui existe encore, qui est somme toute appréciée, mais je pense qu'on peut faire différemment aujourd'hui, puis présenter Montréal sur un autre jour, puis de démontrer une sensibilité envers les animaux sur l'ensemble du territoire.
City Hall has ordered an end to the tourist rides out of concern for the horses. In 2018, the council passed a bylaw banishing horse-drawn carriages, starting in 2020. Coachwoman Shanna Lanlode rejects suggestions the animals are mistreated.
Je suis pas d'accord. On aime nos chevaux, on les connaît. On sait quand ils sont fatigués, on sait quand ils sont tannés. Moi, même si ça roule sans arrêt, si je vois qu'il est tanné ou qu'il est fatigué, ben, je vais rentrer puis ça finit là. Je vais pas rester parce qu'il y a plein d'argent à faire, je m'en fous de l'argent.
That settlement is echoed by coachwoman Natalie Matt.
C'est un cadeau de Dieu de pouvoir travailler avec ces chevaux-là et définitivement un privilège. C'est la magie du Vieux-Montréal. Tant qu'à moi, ils viennent de tuer le Vieux-Montréal. En tout cas, le cœur vient de partir.
The death of a horse in the last year while pulling a carriage was a last straw for animal rights groups. It prompted Mayor Valérie Plante to speak out against the carriage industry, saying it was no longer welcome in Montreal. The decision will put some 50 coachmen and their horses out of work. Canada's biggest city, Toronto, is saying goodbye to its historic streetcars. By the end of the year, the trolleys will be retired and replaced with sleek new trams. And that decision has been met with a mix of sentimental sadness and scorn. Scott Haskell of the Toronto Transit Commission says the trolleys can no longer meet the needs of the city.
We needed to replace them because they were old, and we needed to replace them because they weren't accessible. We also needed bigger streetcars because the routes are so busy, we needed more capacity.
But passengers, Zach Cockburn says he will miss the look of the old streetcars.
I mean, I prefer the look of the older ones personally. So I don't know. I know they got to do what they got to do to keep vehicles up and everything, but I would say I like the look of older ones personally.
This commuter will also miss the trolleys.
I like these streetcars because they have a history in Toronto, and when you see them, they're an icon, right? So, but also the newer streetcars, they're bigger, they're better, they hold more people, they're faster. So, in a city like this, eventually you need change.
In sports, Eagle News correspondent Anthony Sevilla takes a look at the couple of NHL victories for Vancouver. In the first contest, the Canucks faced the Pittsburgh Penguins for the final time this season and emerged winners.
The Vancouver Canucks won their second straight home game, defeating the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-1 at Rogers Arena. Pedersen, Besser, Virtanen, and JT Miller all scored for Vancouver, while Jake Gensel scored the lone goal for Pittsburgh. The Penguins ended their 4-game winning streak after their loss to the Canucks. They struggled heavily in the first to generate offense. It was the first time since 2002 they were unable to record a shot in an entire period. It also marked only the 5th time in Canucks history that they held an opponent shotless in a period. The Penguins also had trouble staying out of the penalty box early on. 3 Pittsburgh players were penalized back-to-back in the first, which resulted in a 2-0 lead after 20 minutes.
Like I said, it is what it is, and I thought we got a little bit unlucky there in the first period with some of those calls, and I mean that's a tough situation to be in, taking all those penalties. But we did our best and we tried to battle through it. But if we had a better first period, I think we would have had a better chance. Good shooters, probably for the most part. They got threats all over the ice, and when you got so many threats, it's you can't just pay attention to one guy. So obviously that makes it tough to defend for sure.
I think anytime that happens, I think especially early in the game, I think it takes a lot out of you. But I think at the end of the day, I think our team responded well. We just didn't put the puck in the net as much as we could have. We took the penalties tonight, and we haven't before, and I think they cost us tonight, and I think we just got to learn that lesson.
I thought we had obviously a really good first period there, and they made obviously a strong push in the second, but I thought we regrouped and had a really good third period and kind of took everything away from them. So it was a huge 2 points for us tonight, and now we got to get another 2 next game.
Elias Pettersson and JT Miller also continued to shine for Vancouver. Both Miller and Pettersson notched a goal and an assist in the win. Miller shared the similarities between his former team and this young Canucks team, while Pettersson explained the impact that JT Miller had on himself and to the team.
Yeah, I learned a lot, especially in Tampa. Obviously, that's one of the most elite power plays in the league, and I learned a lot being on there and how they react to teams' penalty kills and how they move it past team players. And I see a lot of similarities on this unit, just a lot younger. And there's a lot of nights we're working on really good and don't get any goals, and it's frustrating. But tonight was a good example in that 5-on-3. You could definitely tell we wanted to score there. We finally did, and it was taken away, so it kind of sucks. But we're learning as the season goes on. I think that we want to be consistent, work hard, and we're finding a way to get it on both units right now, which is huge.
He has a lot of experience. He saying and teaching me small stuff like how to play smarter with the puck and all that. So he's been really good for me to be able to talk with someone to learn. We feel comfortable playing with each other. Brock and JT are skilled guys, so it's easy to play with them, and we always want to work hard and create a lot.
Pittsburgh looked to bounce back after the holiday break as they continued to wait for All-Star and team captain Sidney Crosby to return from injury. Vancouver will look to keep their momentum heading forward as they continue to fight for the last wildcard spot in the Western Conference. From Rogers Arena in Vancouver, Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, always one with 25.
In the other game, the Canucks earned a 5-4 win against the Vegas Golden Knights, but took overtime to do it.
Chris Tanev scored the game-winning goal in overtime to secure the 5-4 win for the Vancouver Canucks over the Vegas Golden Knights. Vancouver avenged their most recent loss on the road to the Golden Knights with the win tonight here at Rogers Arena. Markstrom had a huge 35-save performance, while Pettersson earned the first star of the game with his 2 goals against Vegas. Vancouver avenged their most recent loss on the road to the Golden Knights with the win at Rogers Arena. Vancouver took a 3-1 lead coming out of the first period, but Vegas scored the only 2 goals in the second to tie up the game. The last moments of the third, the Canucks would be up 4-3, but Vegas would capitalize on the 4-on-4 opportunity and force the game into overtime and completely shifted the momentum in favor of the Golden Knights. However, Vancouver got the miracle goal from Chris Tanev to claim the 5-4 win, marking it the 3rd straight overtime win at home for the Canucks.
Yeah, they took it to us Sunday really badly. It was not what we wanted at all, and they're a very good team. So like I said, it's huge to get a win against a team that they're going to be there right at the end of the season. So it's good to get the win. Yeah, obviously it was a back and forth game. So they brought it to us for a little bit of it in the second, especially. They felt like they controlled the play a bit, but Markey was awesome again, and he made some big saves going down the stretch.
It was a fun game to play, back and forth. Some, not fighting, but a lot of emotion between the teams. It's a divisional game, so fun game to play and a fun game for the fans as well. Yeah, for sure. I'm really happy for him. He's such a good guy, and I'm really happy that he scored the game-winning goal. Yeah, Markey was another great game from him. He always keeps us in the game. He made a huge save when they just tied it, and I think the shift after they have another good chance. But he was there in the way, and they made a huge save for us.
Mark Stone scored the goal for Vegas to force the game into overtime. The Golden Knights' assistant captain showed his frustration in the loss. however was opportunistic about his team's success heading forward.
I've liked the way we've played. I liked a lot of the things we did tonight. There's a couple breakdowns, but I like a lot of the things we did. When we get in on the cycle, when we synchronize with our defense, teams have fits with us. We roll 4 lines out the door and we start cycling, we start manhandling teams below. We got some size, we got some skill, and we got speed. So if we play like that, we're going to win more hockey games than we're going to lose.
Head coach for Vegas, Gerard Gallant, gave credit to the Canucks goaltender and showed disappointment in the team's loss.
You got to give him credit. He made some key saves, especially that one on Stastny with a minute and a half left on our power play there in the third period. So that was a big save for him, and big win for them. But we're a little disappointed. We only got the 1 point.
The Canucks' win over the Golden Knights tied up the season series 1-1. The two teams will battle in the third game of this head-to-head battle in Las Vegas. However, the two division rivals won't face off again until March of the new year. From Rogers Arena in Vancouver, Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, always one with 25.
Still to come, the Meat and Cheese Festival makes a stop at Vancouver. You're watching Eagle News. This is Eagle News. I'm Tiffany Alisasis. EBC correspondent Arnie Aquino takes us to the Meat and Cheese Festival in Vancouver.
We're here at the Yaletown Roundhouse to have a little taste of the Cheese and Meat Festival.
The Cheese and Meat Festival tours a number of cities in the Pacific Northwest and brings staple vendors as well as up-and-coming local producers together in a common place where charcuterie connoisseurs can gather. We got to speak with vendors that have their operations close to home in the Fraser Valley, only 40 minutes away from Vancouver.
Cool. The Tree Reserve Barney. Are you guys local? Maple Ridge. Oh, you're from Oh, okay. And everything was made in Maple Ridge? Oh, yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. Is it a family venture or is it? Yeah.
Two girls. They're running the show and working their little hearts out.
Oh, okay, nice.
They've been in Maple Ridge since 1902. And their uncle's dairy's next door. So the milk truck goes from their 500 Jersey cow crew just next door to the cheese shop.
We also got to try locally smoked olives.
Hi.
Smoked olives?
Yes. What is this?
Those are smoked olive tapenades.
Okay. Can I
Try that one first.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise that's going to overpower the flavor. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like it. It's meaty.
The festival is a charcuterie lover's stream. There were plenty of different foods to try, such as oysters, cured meats, different types of antipasto, and even bite-sized macaroons. Each year, attendees anticipate the event, and this year was not an exception. According to their website, cheeseandmeatfestival.com, the festival is dedicated to showcasing international and locally made cheeses and meats. From Vancouver, my name is Arnie Aquino, always one with 25.
That is this week's Eagle News. Join us next week for stories that matter to you. Visit our website at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I am Tiffany Alisasis. I am one with 25.